Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of Hard Claim with Viva La Sam. I'm Sam, and this is a show where we talk to people who play Blood on the Clocktower and get their player perspective of the game. Joining us for this week's episode is Chris Grace. Thank you for joining us, Chris.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Yeah. We have Sex and Violets loaded up here, which you requested to have loaded. We pass out characters. You drew the Philosopher token. I guess the first question would be, would you use your ability on the first night?
I probably wouldn't. Depends on who my teammates are. I mean, like who my game mates are. I might do it if it's funny. Um, if there's somebody that I mean, I might like Philo Snake Charmer. That might be something I might do.
All right.
And then I might do something strange to. Oh, I could Philo Mutant, right?
You definitely could.
Something strange.
And I have seen it before.
Yeah, I don't know. I think some of those are pretty funny, actually. Um, I think it actually reflects Philosopher is a great token because it really does. You can play it however you want, and it sort of reflects over the years how some philosophers have been like sort of chaotic, and then some philosophers do things just to be funny, and then some people really try to make the exact right choice. But I just feel like philosopher often you just no matter how hard you try, you make the wrong choice.
I do like it a lot. I also like giving it as a bluff for evil because it gives them a reason to say, "Oh, well, you're drunk and your information's bad." That's fun too, I think.
I mean, this script is so great for that, like with Mutant and Ceranovus, and like I feel like this script is when you start to soften up about double claims.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Madness plays I think a big role in that, and we'll talk more about Madness later for sure. But yeah, in the meantime, excuse me. In the meantime, if we were chatting day one, what would you claim to me?
I mean, I might just say I'm the Philo that went Snake Charmer. I very much I very often just give my actual hard claim on day one. It keeps it simpler for me. And also no one does it, so no one believes me anyway. And then I don't know, like I went through so many stages quickly in a 12-month period of, when you first start and you're like, why doesn't everybody just say what they are? And then going to the 2023 Vegas Clocktower Con, where I got into games with veterans that were like on day one, they would be like, well, I'm the poisoner, or the mayor, or I'm the Ceranovus, and I'm just like, what? So especially if I'm playing with veteran players, I almost always just hard claim my actual role.
Yeah, I see that progression a lot. New players, just claim what they are, and then eventually realize, oh, I should be hiding what I am. And then eventually they realize, well, if I'm hiding what I am, then it's also harder for anybody to figure anything out. So it's a bit of a cycle.
I mean, so I think part of it is if I'm in a veteran game and I'm good, then I don't want to be one of the like moving pieces that people are hinging like multiple different worlds on. So I'd come out and say I'm the Raven Keeper on day one and never get killed, or say I'm the Undertaker and get killed night two or something like that. Because I don't mind getting killed early. So I think that was actually not a quick progress. That never really bothered me, like dying in this game. So I almost would rather, like in Trouble Brewing, I love dying night two because it's just like there's no real reason I would get killed unless you think it's some. Of course, that's when like if I'm the imp, I'll star past night two. Yeah. So for a lot of times, if I'm with veterans, I'm almost just like here's some information. Now, you go solve it.
Right. I play with a lot of people who come from a sort of a werewolf background, and werewolf players who transition to Blood on the Clocktower usually, at least at the start, have trouble getting over the whole. Oh, it's okay if I die. Like they just have that ingrained to them. Oh, I need to stay alive at all costs.
Right.
Some of them still hold on to that a little bit, but yeah, I'm used to a lot of people who it took them a while to kind of get over that hump.
Well, also in Werewolf is there's a thing of if numerically you can get like the game can end early, right?
Right.
I mean, certainly it can in Clocktower, but it's much rarer for it to just numbers wise end early.
Yes. As soon as town has what a parity with the number of werewolves, and yeah, it's because it's effectively game over. So saving
Yeah,
lives is a
I
lot
see.
important.
That's what I.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny because that's what I think is great about Clocktower, but also harrowing for the evil team, which is you can play the best first 4 days as evil team, and the worlds are still being eliminated. The walls are like still closing in,
Hmm.
especially in setups where you can't, like if it's just a demon and a minion, and there's no way you're ever gonna like end the game early. Um,
Hmm.
where good players just start like ruling out things based on the deaths. It feels so it's like very tense, I think. No matter how well you've played.
Yeah, and it's amazing to me that I guess in spite of that, the win rate for the game usually still comes down to 50-50 in the grand scheme of things, especially Trouble Brewing. Good evil have a pretty even
Yeah.
50-50 win rate. Um, but yeah,
Well, it's
I
funny thing I
yeah.
was thinking about that 50-50 win rate because I realized that even though it's a 50-50 win rate, it's not a 50-50 happiness rate because if good's winning 50% of the games, that means most of the time most of the players are happy.
Yeah, that's a good point, I guess. Yeah. I never mind losing as evil or as good really, but especially as evil, I'm like, every good victory needs an evil team to be overcome. And
Yeah, I
I
actually
yeah.
let's see. I never mind losing. I mean, I won't say never, but like, because I have minded losing as evil as recently as Las Vegas. Um, let's see. I don't mind as much losing as evil. I get saltier when good loses. If I feel like we haven't like worked well as a team. When I haven't gotten that feeling of like I don't mind being deceived by the evil team.
Mhm.
I To me like that's what they're supposed to do. I get salty sometimes when it's like chaotic plays on the good team that don't make sense to me, or there's an antisocial nature to it sometimes where I'm just like, wait, what's going on? And then we just like lose, and I'm just like, okay, we were playing some meta in joke game that I wasn't let in on.
Yeah. Yeah, I know it can be tough because you want to play to have fun, obviously, but also what's fun for everybody can be different.
Yeah,
Sometimes people just they don't really think about what won't be fun for everybody else. I have played with players who just are chaotic for chaotic sake. I don't mind chaos, but I prefer to have some kind of reasoning for I guess, the madness, so to speak.
I think that it might boil down to I think Clocktower needs to have a core of people being listened to, and I think
Hmm.
sometimes good you can get the feeling of I don't even have a chance to make my case. I think maybe I'm thinking particularly of like when you're good and everybody thinks you're evil, or when you're good and you have info that you're trying to get out and people are dismissing it. Like that's I would put that under like just a bad feeling in the game that is not so fun. And like because I certainly we've played with people who are very good at hey, everybody thinks Sam is evil. We all know Sam's evil, but we're not going to like shun you. Like
Right.
we're still going to let you make your case even though none of us believe it, kind of situation.
Yeah, I'm quite fortunate. I've really pushed my group to my group. Even if you're fully out at evil, people will still chat with you. Pretty much the only groups that I do hang around with are groups where won't just shun somebody. And I know there's been a lot of conversation in the community lately, partially initiated by yourself on Reddit. I know, just talking about you know the whole general, I guess, just making the game fun and not being toxic and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because after that post on Reddit, I was like, "Uh-oh, mate, I better not be in any games with people and get mad." um, I think I think part of that was because I did have some friends who just had a really rough time at some in-person games. And I think since that post, I have been thinking. Some people have made the case that maybe a lot of the games were too big, um, because what happens at the conventions is you start with a game of like 10 people, but then people come by the room and they say, "Can we get in?" And that's I think it's socially difficult for the storytellers to say no, because we are supposed to be inclusive and the game is
Right.
supposed to be able to sustain up to 20 people. And there were games in the last convention in Vegas that were like uh 15 people with 5 travelers. And you're also meshing a bunch of different play styles from people that don't know each other. So this is probably all a recipe for poor communication.
Yeah, and it's interesting too because on my stream, I got to the point where I just let pretty much as many people who want to play. I wish I had a dollar for every time I was running a 15, 16, 17 player BMR, and somebody in chat came, "Oh wow, this is a big game of BMR."
Hmm.
But it's also a little different than this is I mean, my group's pretty open to anybody, but it is still technically a closed group that I have control over, and I guess that's a little different than a convention setting where anybody can kind of jump in, and I could definitely see where that'd be a little harder, I guess, to regulate.
Uh, yeah. Also, I think sometimes at conventions you're running. I would love to know a stat of how many base 3 games were run. Um, I think a lot of times you're in a 15-person custom or a homebrew
That makes
that
sense. Yeah.
that could run slow because of the wonky nature of the nights, and could end up being extremely unbalanced. So it could be a 2.5 hour game that is a stomp, and it's such a weird feeling compared to like a 90-minute trouble brewing that comes down to the final three, and
Yeah. I won't go on. Also, that reminds me of my side spiel that I won't go on because I've done it multiple times on this show and elsewhere. But about keeping games within 2 hours, no matter how big they are, because
hmm
I do find that games that go on, especially past 2 hours, it just starts wearing people down. And
yeah.
yeah, I have a whole thing on that, but
Yeah, actually, I mean, that might be a whole thing to keep people less salty, is the
Mhm.
prospect of being able to play another one. You know, when if you go to someone's house and it's 7 hours and you play 2 games, you might
Oh
feel
wow,
kind of like, I mean, that's definitely happened in my life.
wow, yeah,
um, as opposed to maybe getting 4 in. Like
right.
this week on my stream, actually, to cleanse our souls this week, I ran 5 games. I was initially going to try to speed run 10 trouble brewings.
Oh wow,
And just but a trouble brewing really holds up. It's like you
yeah,
can just randomly pick the bag, and you can run almost like 90-second day private chats. And also people come I think you become less attached to the outcome, because it's just like, yeah, we're enjoying the mechanics of this game, we're enjoying the private chats, we're enjoying the
yeah,
nominations and the defenses and the drama of it, but like we're not if you go over 2 hours, you're probably so invested in the outcome because you've
yeah,
spent so much time. There's so much sunk costs with the time.
yeah. I
Here, I,
always
I
think
did
about
I did my version of the rant for you.
that work. I always think about TPI does their new player trouble brewing games. 9 players. They have 1 hour to get everybody in,
Hmm.
run the game, explain the rules of the game, run the game, in the game, do the kind of the post grim reveal kind of thing, reset for the next game. Uh,
Hmm.
60 minutes, 9 people. 12 people, you would probably be aiming for more about an hour and a half. 15 players, about 2 hours. If you're adding travelers, that shouldn't add more time much because you don't need to execute. You can exile them, but you don't need to execute them to get the game down.
Hmm.
And some travelers speed up the game, like a gunslinger or bureaucrat or so on, so on.
Yeah.
Um,
I think you've argued for not having a hard timer for days, right?
Yeah, I do a soft timer for days, but
Mhm.
I don't want it to be publicly available because I don't want people because if I'm online, let's say in person, I usually do about, say for 12 people, I'll do about a 5 minute discussion phase before bringing back people for nominations. But I won't tell everybody what the 5 minutes are because maybe I want to speed it up a little bit, or maybe the evil
Mhm.
team's just getting to talk to each other for the first time, and then maybe I want to extend it so to make sure that they have a little bit of a chat, and then I
Mhm.
speed it up a bit as the game goes on. Yeah. All right. So let's rewind a bit. So talking about Blood on the Clocktower, how did you discover the game, and how long ago was that?
Uh, I almost know the day. It's something like August 24th, 2023. So it's been a pretty short run for me in
Yeah.
Clocktower, in terms of diving down this rabbit hole. So I was at the Edinburgh Fringe and I was doing my solo show, and I was sharing a dressing room with Rosie and Sully from No Rules Barred, and they were doing their show Grubby Little Mitts, and we would just, I mean, we saw each other every day. Just like this past August, we saw each other every day again. And somehow it came up that they knew John Gracie, who does Werewolf Live at Edinburgh Fringe, and so they put my name in. I just said like, yeah, I'd love to play that. And weirdly, and I can't figure out who this was. Someone at the very beginning of the month, like 2 days before the Fringe started, said, "Oh, my friend is doing Blood on the Clock Tower Live. It's this new game that is supposed to be pretty fun." And so that was in my head. I didn't really think about it. And then about halfway through the month, I was talking with Rosie and Sully saying, "Oh, I would love to play that werewolf game. I haven't played that in forever." And yeah, I guess I'm interested in this Blood and the Clock Tower thing. But I wasn't like booked for the Blood and Clock Tower show. So I did the Werewolf Live show with John Gracie, and it went really well. And then the next day was Blood on the Clock Tower Live, so they invited me to that. So my first time playing Blood on the Clock Tower was at Blood on the Clock Tower Live at Edinburgh Fringe, in the 5 person, adjusted rules version,
Mm-hmm.
in front of 150 people. Uh, and my first game, I was a drunk artist. And I mean, I didn't even know what drunk meant. I just asked if Mara Joy was evil and was told yes. And then she turned out not to be. We still won the game because the empath claimed that he got a 3. And so like he also was brand new to the game and
Classic.
said that he got an empath 3, and I think he was evil in some way. We won, but basically Mara figured it out. I remember it specifically in that game. There was a point where Mara told maybe Sullivan, like, "Okay, now I want to hear you argue the case where you're the demon because logically that's the only position left," or something like that. Like the evil team had boxed themselves into a corner, and in your first game, you're just like, I don't understand what's happening whatsoever. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, so I got into the game that way, and then I played. Then I did. I think a lot of people have this period where they sort of lay fallow for a little bit, where they watch a lot of No Rules Barred, they watch a lot of content. I've encountered a lot of people at conventions where they say, "I've watched every single No Rules Barred video.
Mm-hmm.
I've never played a game." And so they have this interesting contrast between, some of them have extremely deep knowledge of the game but have never played. So they understand a lot of the far more of the mechanics than I might even now, but have not experienced any of the like in-person social elements of it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so anyway, I think for a couple weeks, so between August and October, I was more in that mode of like watching a lot of stuff because I didn't really have anywhere to play, and I was sort of trepidatious about being in the around that time. I would say I was more exposed to like the unofficial app, um, looking for discords and stuff like that. And then I played in an online game with the Grim the day before the Vegas Clocktower Con. And then I went to the Clocktower Con, saw all of them. And then at Clocktower Con in Vegas last year, I played 23 games. And then it
Wow.
was kind of over for me at that point.
What would you say hooked you about the game? That you, especially to the point that made you want to play 23 times over.
I think I am one of those people that my brain got hooked into the mechanics of it. So I am a person that like hops into the script tool whenever I get a notion of building a script around a certain thing. I think there are certain players that are like this, that they enjoy building customs and thinking about all the ways things interact. Um, and then I think that was primary for me more than the social part of it. I think the social part of it has come second for me this year, and probably has, I would say, in a way, the social part is more valuable about this game. Um, but it's almost like, for sort of naturally antisocial people like me, the mechanics are the like candy that like pull you in, and then you don't really. Then suddenly you're like, oh, I actually made friends as well. It like tricks you into making friends.
Yeah, it's a good I guess like paradigm, so to speak, to kind of throwing people together. Like a structure to throw people together, and it's funny because I mean the whole thing's kind of based on lying to each other, but but it works for building up those kind of like relationships and stuff.
I think it's a almost functions like a roller coaster, where a roller coaster you can go through these, you can experience dangers without any real stakes. And in this game you can lie. It's almost like you could role play, like, what if I like suddenly realized my best friend was betraying me? you know um and what would that be like? What would that confrontation look like? I often wonder if this helps model or helps walk people through confrontation. There's a lot of confrontation averse people. I would say probably in the social worlds of Clocktower, there's a lot of people that are averse to confrontation in real life. But this is a way, like, you have to confront people in this game when you nominate them.
Hmm. So when you sit down for a game, you're about to draw a token out. How are you feeling at that time, or what are you doing? Are you like looking over the script, or are you kind of feeling everybody out, or just hanging out?
I probably should look at the script more. I almost never look at the script. I don't understand what I'm supposed to be looking for when I look at the script. People look at these scripts, especially like if you hand somebody a custom, and they're like, if you hand Jams or Ed a script and they're like, oh, okay, I can see the problems here, blah blah blah, blah. you know there's I remember Ed told me once that he looked at a very popular script. I won't say the name of it, but he was like, oh, there's a way that the script is broken, where like evil can always win or something like that. And he's like, I'm not going to tell you what it is, but it's like, okay. So yeah, I hardly ever like look at the script and think about, I don't know. I just, I think, I think because I think you could look at Trouble Brewing forever if you've never played it. It's like when new players play Trouble Brewing and they want to like Google every character on the script. They want to walk through every interaction. They want to like really figure out every permutation of what can happen. And as a veteran player, you're just like, you're not going to grasp it. Just play Trouble Brewing 5 times,
Yeah.
and I can tell you about what happens when you nominate the Virgin. It's still going to take you by surprise whenever it happens. So I don't know, I feel that way, especially with the customs. A lot of times I'm just like, yeah, why not? Let's just try it.
Yeah, I always consider this game to be a learn as you go game. I tell
Hmm.
storytellers all the time, just read the rules explanation. Under no circumstances read through and go through every character on Trouble Brain. That it is going to
No, and
overwhelm
I've
them.
I have
Yeah.
I have sat through games where people do that. And the only thing that I add to the basic rules explanation is something that I think Ed mentioned to me once, which I do think is useful. Where when I forget where I mean, I always say it in the same place. I can't remember where it is, but I always mention that the demon will get 3 bluffs and that the minions
Hmm.
won't, and that's a good reason for the demon to find the minions to talk to them. It's somewhere in the like talking about. I always mention something like that, and something that, hey, just because people go have a private chat doesn't mean they're evil, kind of thing. Somewhere in there. That's about all. That's the only thing I like add to that.
Yeah, and I do wish it was already added in there. I know why it's not, and it's because if the game only had 5 or 6 players, then
Uh
you wouldn't mention that. I've seen very experienced storytellers who what they do is when they're actually running the first night, they'll actually narrate waking the minions and demons and explain. I'm showing the demon three bluffs.
Oh,
I'm showing them the minions. I'm making up the minions. So um, I don't think it's
that's
the
pretty
option
cool.
I
I'll
would
try
go,
that.
but I do think it's a pretty good option. Um,
I'm gonna do that, but I'm gonna say the players' names as I do it. Just so,
yeah.
I mean, it actually might be interesting with a completely brand new crew to take, like, to have everybody. I'd be interested to try this sometime. Take a completely brand new group and actually have them keep their eyes open as you walk through the first night. Not as like a we're actually going to run this game, but like let's throw out tokens and like just so you see what's actually happening. I don't know. It might be fun for them, and also might intrigue some potential new storytellers. Because that's the other thing is sometimes you have new players. I played with some in Texas recently where one of the players just was getting too. She got too tense playing Trouble Brewing. She was just too nervous, did not enjoy herself. And then the third game we played, I said, "Why don't you co-storytell with me?" And she loved it. Like it
That's
was a
great.
completely different experience that was like the way that she could interact with Clocktower that was fun for her.
Do you think traveling would have been a good option as well?
Yeah, maybe.
I
Yeah,
think that works
maybe.
for
I guess
some
I
people.
don't.
I don't think that works for everybody, but I think for some people that might work for them if they're just a bit nervous.
So, is the reasoning that like traveling is sort of like a less intent, like the
Yeah,
stakes are lower kind of
yeah.
thing?
A lot of people describe travelers as maximum power, minimum responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the game doesn't like you have a lot of power in the game, but the game doesn't really hinge on you, whether
Yeah,
you're
that's
good or evil.
interesting. That's interesting because I think that might get at why I don't like traveling as much. Um, because traveling, I often feels peripheral. I mean, travelers are peripheral to the game. Um, but yeah, feel I don't feel as engaged. So yeah, I could see why that would be potentially appealing to some people. Um,
I look at it as an accessibility option, basically.
mhm,
Obviously, the most common example is if you're running late and coming in late, you can join, or if you're need to leave early, you can still get to play. But also, even on my online streams, I have plenty of people who goes, you know what, I had a rough day. Can I just travel instead?
mhm,
Or maybe game one just was fun, but just kind of stressful, and they're like, I still want to play in game two, but I need something lower stress. Or
mhm.
the other example is the game has 16 people, but only 15 people can really have a normal character
Right.
token. So that way you can involve a 16th person. So that's the way I look at it, at least.
Yeah. I could see that. I mean, I ran at the convention. I ran a strings pulling plus a boffin with. It wasn't even that. I don't think it was a full 15 people, but I ran out of character tokens for
No.
the
Oh.
because there was a marionette and there was a
Mm.
boffin. And then when I went to the show, The Demon the Bluffs, I was like, oh, I only have 2 tokens left. um,
Yeah.
um, so maybe I should have traveled somebody in there. That's interesting though. I haven't really thought about traveling in terms of the intensity of the gameplay, but yeah, I think maybe that's why I am less amenable to traveling. But I also
Yeah.
I one day want to figure out if there's a I want to figure out if there's a way you could have a traveler that could also become the demon at some point. Because I know with travelers, it's like they travel and because they're not the demon, that's
Yeah.
why their role. Every time I hear about a rule in Clock Tower, I want to see if I can figure out there's a character that like undermines it.
That makes sense. I will say also, this does very much hinge on travelers being good at least 2/3 of the time. I think what happens in a lot of groups is the storyteller wants to make the traveler evil about half the time, and what
Mm-hmm.
results is the group just never trusts travelers, and so they want
Mm-hmm.
to exile them like really quick, and that's no fun for anybody either.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I never exile travelers early. I never vote for that. I think I will say that that goes back to that Reddit post I made, um,
Hmm.
which is that I think people really, and this probably doesn't have as much in close friend groups, but like people should really keep in mind what is fun for other people
Right.
as well. Um, and traveling in immediately getting exiled out is very very annoying.
Yeah.
Um, I told the story somewhere on Reddit about this horrible gunslinger experience I had, where what turned out to be evil team was just doing like garbage nominations first every single day, um, where they would just nominate somebody they hadn't talked to, and so it'd be like, I nominate Sam. Oh, tell us why. I don't know. And then the person would go like, we didn't even talk, so I don't know what this is about. Genuinely, no one would vote. I wouldn't get to use my ability, and it happened like
Right.
3 days in a row. And it was just, and I even said like, hey, this is not fun for me in any way. We're not. It's one thing if we have a genuine nomination and everyone decides not to vote, but we're not even having the sort of fun. And that was my first time being gunslinger. Um, we're not even having the fun like, hey, I am voting to like show you that I don't mind dying or whatever. All those interactions were gone because of these like speed nominations that were happening.
Yeah.
Um, and so they had no consideration for like whether the game was fun for me. Um, but flip side of that is then I talked to Evan from TPI about it, and he actually laid out some really interesting ways that I could have responded to it, mostly being highlighting the fact that not using the gunslinger to tease out some information about whether or not people are trustworthy
Hmm.
is more likely an evil move than a good move.
Yeah. Yeah, and obviously, again, this goes back to making the game fun, and a lot of groups, a lot, some people anyway, I should say, some groups want to. We'd always say optimize the fun out of the game, and granted, what's fun for people are different. Some people prefer their fun is optimizing, but um, as a whole, it's just not really. And also, what I find people think is optimal isn't even actually optimal for the game. I don't think it's optimal for the game to do a junk nomination so the gunslinger can't kill anybody. Like that's just it's not fun and it's not good for the game, I guess.
Yeah, also I mean thinking I didn't even think about this now, but also they had no way of knowing if I could have been on their team.
Right,
Like,
exactly.
you know.
Well,
Um
that's why I
I,
think it's important for travelers to be good 2/3 of the time, as the rulebook suggests, because you want the traveler to probably be good, but you just need that seed of doubt that well maybe there are evil, and that's where
right.
travelers work best.
Right, and not a situation where there's two travelers. We're definitely going to assume one of them is evil.
Yep, I have
Um
broken that meta in my group a long time ago, so my group pretty much knows by now that if you have two travelers, they very well might both be good.
I think that the optimizing the fun out of the game thing, I think the feeling that you have when you're on the other side of that is, hey, I didn't join this game just to be an NPC for you
Hmm.
to like move me around like a pawn on a chessboard to get to the solution that you wanted, you know.
Yeah. All right. So uh, rewinding back to drawing a token out of the bag, do you prefer that you draw a blue token or a red token?
I think I still lean towards good. Uh I over the last couple months have been starting to be more comfortable rolling as evil. So good. I mean, my like I don't like track my win rate, but I know that my win rate as good is much higher than evil. Evil probably is like close to 50-50 or maybe lower than that. Whereas like when I was like for a month or two when I was tracking games last year, my good win rate was like 75-80%.
Oh wow.
And I think part of that is that I have a pretty I think I have a pretty simple time like earning trust on the good team. And so just helping create stronger worlds where the base is like, hey, you know that thing where people are like, oh, Sam is just good in this situation. That phrase, like I can earn
Hmm.
that phrase a lot in
Hmm.
games, and that's very helpful for smarter players because the base of their worlds is like rock solid. Yeah, and I'm not saying like if I win 80% of my good games, it's never because I solve it. It's never. I'm never the one on the last day being like, "Oh, it's this and this and this." I just play with smarter players and I give them useful information, and or I establish enough trust that it's hard for the evil team to build a world where I'm evil. Um, so and I think even after a year, it's still more difficult for me to build those alternate evil worlds the way that you kind of have to if you're evil. Um, I very often, if I'm bluffing fortune teller, I literally bluffed fortune teller maybe 3 months ago, and on the last day, the other players were like, "Your fortune teller info cannot be real. Like you've just created a series of things that don't make any sense. It has to be you." I as evil though, and now my group has caught on to this, so I have to stop doing it. But I love bluffing top four
Hmm.
as evil. Um I did lose recently trying to bluff Butler as the imp all the way through a game.
No.
Um I enjoy trying to take a chef bluff all the way to the end. And I lately have been trying to not star pass as much because I feel like I've been star passing out of like deference to other people just to be like, okay, I don't want the responsibility. I'm going to star pass somebody else. Someone else lose this game, not me. Um, and I think part of getting more comfortable as the demon is just knowing that you always feel this responsibility to the rest of the team. Like I feel like it's rare as a minion that you feel like you lost the game for evil, where the demons always feel like it's up to them to like win the game when it's not. It's totally not. But I think you have that feeling, and it makes people intimidated.
Yeah. Are there particular types of characters you like to play, like for example, info characters, or maybe more passive characters, etc.?
Um, I I I mean, I love you start knowing characters. I love grandmother. I think grandmother's the best. Like it's like you already have a friend when you start plays grandmother or steward or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I think that um, whenever I feel, for example, I don't know if I've ever been the mathematician, but like mathematician, flower girl, town crier, chambermaid, these characters that even empath, fortune teller. Um, I probably over the next 3 months would rather lean into playing mathematician and trying to figure out the people that love playing mathematician, like why do they love playing it so much? Because that's a role that I'd be averse to, I think. So a lot of times in Clocktower, I feel like, okay, I don't feel super confident playing juggler, so like maybe or gambler. Maybe I'll try to hopefully, you know, play those with like enthusiasm as opposed to like, you know, being worried about how to play them.
Yeah. So I'm curious about so you do acting, you do comedy. I'm curious if that influences how you play the game or view the game, because I do see Clock Tower as performative, I guess to some degree.
Yeah. I think improv helps a lot for Clock Tower, mostly because in improv you have to become extremely sensitive to the very minute mechanic of when someone's going to speak and when they're going to stop speaking and fitting into the rhythm of a conversation. I think a lot of us have this sort of unconscious sense of like, okay, I can feel this sentence coming to an end and I'm going to jump in right there. And it gets more complicated online because of the interface, but
I was going to ask you
um,
about that. Yeah.
yeah, I think it's very important for a fun game. I mean, if you play Clock Tower with a bunch of comedians who are very good at that skill, uh, it can seem like you are playing Clock Tower inside the most entertaining podcast you've ever listened
That feels like it should be its own show.
to.
I'm curious what's going through your mind when you know that you're playing in front of an audience. If you're trying to be sort of, I guess, conscious, so to speak, about how that translates and what they'll take away from it.
Yeah, I mean, you're definitely conscious of it. I think that people underestimate how it is a discrete skill playing any game, but playing Clocktower for content. So if we're playing for like a Norwal's Bard video or for Blood on the Clocktower Live, or even really streams like for content, um, I think that let I think I just let a little more melodrama come into it. I mean, part of it is I just try to I I can't think of a more useless way to phrase this, but I just try to think of funny things to say and say them. Um but I think certainly you want to make big swings, and I think that you want to like be way less attached to what the outcome is, and I think that you want to drive up the stakes of what is happening. So it's almost like you're raising the emotional stakes of the game but getting less attached to them. um yeah, I think because like especially like Blood on the Clock Tower Live, people are uh not real. I mean, I don't think they're super there to like enjoy the mechanics of the game necessarily. um Especially like veterans. I'm curious. I feel like Blood on the Clock Tower Live might, I think if I threw Ken Chang at that format 20 times in a row, if I threw Ken Chang and Marjoy at that game 20 games in a row, they might come out of it saying, okay, oh, we solved it. Like we have this has become a solved exercise like tic-tac-toe.
Right.
So it's not about that. It's about the seeing comedians you love sort of torture each other in a way. I think that might be part of it.
That's fun. All right, so we have Sex and Violets loaded here. Why did you pick this script over the other two, or any other script,
Um,
really?
I always love playing Sex and Violets. I will play it anytime. I love this script. I love the characters on the script. I think, I think I had the least experience with Badman Rising. And I I think if you come into Clock Tower now, it's hard to encounter the other two base three scripts after Trouble Brewing. It's hard to encounter them without some veteran painting how you should feel about them before you get to them. Because I feel like there's such opinions about Sex and Violets or Bad Moon Rising. So I think
Mhm.
part of my thing about Bad Moon Rising is I just haven't encountered it enough, and when I have, it's often been the third game in a session where a third of the players are saying like, I hate this script so much. um and so maybe just fewer people say they hate Sex and Violets, and that's why I like it. um but I think there's lots of fun characters on the script. Like uh I love Clockmaker. I love how people think when you first encounter Chef and Clockmaker, people are like, I mean, I ran games last month where somebody was the chef and they're just like, okay, well, I can die because my character sucks. And I was like, your character is maybe the best character.
Yeah.
And Clockmaker too, as well. When you come out, you know, on the third day with Clockmaker information that just destroys an evil world that's been built. But yeah, I think I just like this guy. I love a lot of the characters. I love the Snake Charmer interactions. I love Madness. I love the Fangu jumping around. I love all that.
Yeah, it's a high chaos, and I know it's why I tend to like it a lot. I prefer Trouble Brewing, but if I have to take a second script, it would be Sex and Violets.
I think what I love about this script is when a newer player gets woken up for the first time and gets told that they are a different character. The look on their face is so enjoyable for me as a storyteller. So maybe this is like a selfish reason, but I think it's fun for them too. It's fun for them to just wake up and be to go to the town and just be, I don't know what just happened. I guess I'm the artist now. I don't know what, or like somebody said I was the barber, and then everyone's like, "Don't tell anybody." That moment is so fun.
I remember a Sex and Violence game I ran. It's been quite some time ago now, but a one player. She was still relatively new. It's probably only like her second or third Sex and Violence game, and she was an outsider, and she got Fang Yu jumped to, so she became an evil demon. But then she was snake charmed like a day or so later. So in the span of like 2 or 3 days, she became good, then evil, then good, and she like her
Hmm.
reaction was just priceless. She was like, "What is going on?"
I know. Oh, and I think that helps you. That those are situations that help you detach from the outcome, because a lot of times in Sex and Violets, days 1 through 4, I'm like, I have no idea what's happening. Um, Let me just wait until the mutant gets executed or there's a barber swap or something. Like a lot of times in Sex and Violets, it's like the last day or the next last day I is when I actually try to solve what's happening. Um, and I let smarter people do the rest.
And Sex and Violence also introduces madness in the game. So how do you feel about madness in
I
Blood on the
love
Clocktower?
madness. Yeah, I love it. I love actually. I mean, I love getting targeted by madness. Um, I think it's so fun. I think it's such a thorny needle threading type situation. Um, and it's not on sex and violence, but I love getting targeted by the harpy as well. Um, yeah, I enjoy it very much. What do you consider cheating in Madness?
Cheating? So the rules of the game are madness is always optional, and that
Yeah,
does include you are allowed to break madness away from the storyteller. I
right.
know for some people that is a controversial opinion, but that is the rules of the game, and in my opinion, the spirit of the game, because the developers have said that's the spirit of the game.
Okay.
It's even on
Um,
the wiki. It's even on the wiki as a potential strategy.
yeah, it's what's interesting is when you just said that, because the one and only time that I would consider, so where someone could consider that I cheated at Madness was uh my friend was the dreamer. I was made Serenovus mad that I was the dreamer, and I went to him on the day that I was made mad as dreamer and said, "Hey, just to let you know, I'm going to tell town that I'm the dreamer today." Because actually, when I'm mad, I do believe in. Um, I'm pretty aggressive about. Uh, I never try to like get around it in terms of not telling town,
I do
but I
think it's
told
a
him,
more fun way to do madness.
yeah. And so I said, "Hey, I'm just to let you know, I want to tell town that I'm the dreamer today because that's what I am. I'm the dreamer. So it's no big deal. Just to let you know I'm the dreamer." And he did not react well to this at all. And he said, "I don't understand what you're doing. I'm going to nominate you. You're definitely evil." And then I said, "There's a reason I'm doing this," and I pointed at the Serenovus on the script. Um, which I felt icky about, but I was just kind of like trying to explain the mechanics of Serenovus at the same time. Like, so it wasn't, I felt it was partially that he didn't understand that there was what the Serenovus does.
Yeah,
Um, so, but to your point, that was away from the storyteller. And then when he nominated me, which he did, and I think I got executed, he did say, he basically outed me, right? So which is I think the antidote to the breaking madness away from the storyteller is that any of the players can go tell the storyteller or go tell the
yeah.
town what you said. So that became part of the nomination, which was, Chris said this. He said he was the dreamer, which is my role, and then he pointed at the Serenovus thing, which I don't understand or whatever. And then I was teased by the storyteller for breaking madness in that way. I think I just got normally executed because it was one of those things where uh those many situations where actually executing hurts the evil team because of
Right,
like if there's still questions about what minions there are or whatever, and as a storyteller and I was about to get executed anyway from the
right.
nomination.
Yeah. And yeah, that's something somebody could, you could have been bluffing as evil, right? I mean, you could be like, "Oh, I'm the dreamer," and he goes, "Oh, well, I'm the dreamer, and you're evil." And I'm like, "Well, no, actually, it's because of the Serenovus." And yeah,
Yeah. Oh, I
uh,
mean, yeah, that should be an interesting play to say to pretend to break madness away from the storyteller.
yeah,
That would be interesting. I'll put that. You know how everybody has the little like virtual bag of things I'm going to try in Clocktower.
yeah,
That'll go in there.
yeah. I'll be curious how that goes. Yeah, yeah, it's not really a strategy I normally encourage. People breaking madness away from the storyteller, but it is legal. It is, I think, maybe worth doing some of the time.
Hmm.
And I think people overestimate, because some people just think it breaks the game and just completely undermines Serenovus, and I completely disagree. For example, if the storyteller looked over at you and saw you pointing at the Serenovus, that could be enough to get you executed.
Right.
And it's not that hard to do. I mean, it's maybe not the easiest, but yeah, I don't think it's a big deal.
Well, I would also consider it legal because you never have to do Serenovus Madness at all. I mean, I think
Right.
I think I what I love about the way all those things are phrased is that there's always just there is no you have an incentive to do it, which is in that case like not get executed or Harpy Madness, you don't want one or both of you to die or something. There's always like a consequence in there, and it's totally optional.
Yeah.
Which that I love because I actually love too when people get made Terra Novus man. They're just like, no, I'm not doing it. Like,
I
they just tell town.
I was gonna say
I think that's
sometimes
great.
I've had players, they don't even just go, "Oh, I'm not going to do that." They just don't do it. They don't say they're not going to do it. They never mention
Yeah,
Sarah
that's
Nova.
interesting.
They just go about their day, and then they get executed by me, and they're like, "Well, that's exactly what I wanted." So
Yeah, that's great actually.
yeah.
Uh, yeah, I like that a lot.
What I would say would be cheating is, or at the very least, very much unsportsmanlike, would be if I said, let's say, you're claiming Dreamer, but I think you're the mutant. You didn't claim mutant. I just think that's why you're claiming Dreamer. And I went to the storyteller and I said, Chris claimed mutant to me. That
Oh,
that I think would not be okay.
yeah, that would be interesting.
I've never seen it happen, thankfully. But
Right.
people have theorized, "Oh, what if somebody did this?" And I'd be like, I think that's not within. That actually is not within the spirit of the game.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely on the side of a don't lie about what someone else said
Right?
to
Exactly.
you. I I mean, I feel like we have to be able to lie about what we said in conversations. Um
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, but also I know that like not everybody worldwide subscribes to that
Yeah.
don't lie about what other
Yeah.
people say.
Yeah. That's really a whole other like controversial topic that maybe we won't
Yeah.
get too much into. But
Yeah.
I do think people. It's one of those things where people should be conscious as to what's fun for other people. And the fact of the matter is, a lot of people don't find it fun if you lie about what they said.
Well, also similar to what you brought up before, I have played I've run games for a group that like only played werewolf for 10 years, and then this is the first Trouble Brewing they're ever going to play, and they did way more of that off the top. They did way more
Interesting.
of
Yeah.
complete gaslighting, extremely aggressive nominations and defenses in ways that, coming from my soft-hearted clock tower world, I was like, oh my gosh, this feels really hostile to me. But it was just the way they play. So I mean, of
Yeah.
course, whatever your local meta is fine
Yeah.
as long as
Yeah.
everyone's having fun.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's always a good point too. Yeah. All right. Well, we have a section here that I like to go through where I ask people about what I would consider to be divisive characters. These are
Okay.
characters that people tend to either really like or really hate. You've already talked. You briefly mentioned the first one. It is from this script. How do you feel about Snake Charmer?
I love Snake Charmer. It might be one of my favorite characters in all of Clock Tower. Um, and I pick with abandon starting night one. I've multiple times charmed the demon, at the beginning, and I love the regular rules. Um, I don't need Alejo to help me with anything. because I think that's what Snake Charmer is. Like that's the you can always just, if you're running a game, if you're in a game and the storyteller's not running Alejo rules, then just pick yourself. Then start night two if you really don't, or you know what, I don't know. I just, to me, I'm just like, let's roll the dice every single night, because the reward is so high. If you go 5 days and you haven't picked the demon yet, you
Yeah.
have such good info. Although just as many times I've been just sitting next to the Nodashi and it was all pointless.
Yeah.
Or day three, the philosopher is like, oh, I philosophized. But yeah, I love Snake Charmer. I love that. I love the swap. I love getting I really encourage people to try this. If you're the demon that gets snake charmed, um I have had such a blast where I do not out immediately. I go to the minions and I say, I'll get some info, like I'd like to know what kind of minion they are.
Mhm.
And then I tell them I was snake charmed, and I say I'm not going to out it. And basically, me as the new snake charmer and the minions are basically in a race to figure out who the demon is, which I love. I think it's more fun for the minions. I Sometimes I think it's maybe a slightly bad feeling for the minions to just get outed on whenever the
Yeah.
snake charm happens.
Uh, I don't think the strategy really works on Sex and Violence, but it can work on other scripts where the minions might actually lie to the demon about what they are in case of a snake charming. I played in a game where my fellow minion was a goblin, but
Mm.
told the demon that they were a different minion, so that if they got snake charmed and he got outed and nominated, he could claim goblin and maybe get a
That's
goblin
pretty.
one.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting, because like it's not like you would mess it up for the demon if you got the
Right.
goblin win. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. Catfishing, I've classic custom script. I've seen it go wrong a time or two where the widow has seen the grimoire and just kind of outs, includes the snake charmer and the and the grim, and then the demon gets snake charmed, and then it's kind of a
Right.
oops.
Oh, that's actually a good point. Maybe Widow should just hold on to that.
Yeah. All right. So next character here. How do you feel about Poppy Grower?
Um, I like Poppy Grower. I have been in some incredible. I mean, like the game that ended Vegas Clocktower Con 2023 uh had a Poppy Grower and a Pixie Poppy Grower, and on the last night I was pit hagged. I It was suspected that I was the marionette the whole game because I was sitting next to the recluse, and on the last night I was pit hagged into a good baron because I wasn't the marionette, but the evil team didn't know. They thought I was on their team,
Mhm.
and that was one of those things where I woke up and had to have Randall from Vegas explain to me in town. I said, "I'll just say what happened, and then you tell me what's going on," because I had no idea. But yeah, I love Poppy Grower. I uh, also have had great games as evil in Poppy Grower game, because the I love trying to take a trust fall if I get an inkling that someone is evil and just out to them. I think that's super fun.
I know as a storyteller, it's really fun when that happens and it works. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, it's good stuff.
I mean, I also think it's funny when it doesn't work. So, a lot of my I don't think I tend not to like make moves that I think are funny based on like exposing somebody else to something, but moves that expose myself to risk, if I think they're funny, I'll do them every time.
Yeah. All right. Next character. How do you feel about Heretic?
Oh, I haven't played in a ton of. Oh, I mean, I haven't played a ton of Heretics games, but I did lose an NRB Patreon game maybe 2 months ago, where the last day was only evil. We were gonna wake up on three evils, but I thought Ken Chang was the heretic, so I killed myself as the demon,
Oh
and then
no.
we lost. Uh, and yeah, I don't know. But I think that's what heretic is for. Like that,
Yeah.
it's I think Heretic is there to create that kind of ending to a game where just an own goal where I just like kill myself for no reason and we lose. I don't know. And luckily my teammates thought it was funny rather than, it's funny because it's also like, um, I always think it's funny how in sports and games, you know, a game that comes down to the last second, like in the NBA, and that shot either goes in or it bounces off the rim and it doesn't. And for whatever reason, that one action changes everyone's perspective about the last hour, where suddenly, you know, oh my gosh, all those moves the coach made were brilliant as opposed to being stupid. And it's funny, like in a game where I kill myself because I think there's a heretic, it's really just one decision I made on the very last night. And it's just me going like, yes, either I point at myself or I don't. It's funny how in the human condition, me just either pointing at me or pointing at somebody else, um, can like change our emotions about what happened. I mean, I just think that's interesting, and I also think
Yeah.
that's what's brilliant about the heretic. Like, it's supposed to put that down into your head.
Yeah. Not to get into too much speculation on future editions of the game, but I believe Heretic's home script is probably that's going to be a defining point of the script. I believe where TPI has said as much. I think Evan said this that like unlike most of Clocktower, where the game is mostly a team game, uh, that's the script that I think Heretic will be on, which is Midnight and House of the Damned, will be uh, individual people could like win or lose the game, which is why it's the
This
expert script.
right, and this is like a script where you're also just trying to figure out like what the win condition is
Yeah,
to a
that
certain
that is
degree.
that is in the official description of for both teams, just trying to figure out how to win. That's why I think Heretic. It again, bit of speculation, but we're probably looking at Heretic, like Goblin, Damsel, uh, characters
Oh
of
my
that
god,
sort.
politician is probably on this.
Maybe
Yeah.
that we don't have a strong indication, I guess, one way or another, but
Wow.
very well could be.
Yeah, that's brutal.
Yeah, so
It's hard enough sometimes dealing with one of these alternate win conditions in a game.
yeah, we'll see how it goes, but yeah, like I said, I just think it's an interesting point you brought up that it just kind of comes down to that one decision of which way your finger is pointing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I ran a game for new people, or not new people. They were they no, they'd played for a little while in Texas when I was home, and I ran the game. And on the last, or like somewhere near the end of the game, the imp um was going like this. I was saying like, "Who do you want to kill?" And the imp was going like this, like that, and I was like waiting because I thought this was I'm thinking, I'm thinking, I'm thinking. So I was waiting and I was sort of like making this gesture, like, who? And then eventually he pointed at somebody else. But when the game was over, he was like, I was trying to star pass. And I was like, but everyone else's eyes are closed. Like, why are you being like subtle about it?
It's funny you mentioned that because a few months ago I ran. This was relatively newer players, but I had almost the exact same thing happen where the imp was like kind of like it wasn't clear that they were pointing at themselves, but they told me after the fact that that's what they were trying to do, and they ended up pointing at
Mm,
somebody else because I didn't realize that they were doing. I was like, oh, point at somebody. Like what? Like yeah, point at somebody.
right.
Yeah, I don't know. All right, next character on the list. How do you feel about Atheist?
um, Oh, I've been in one real atheist game and a number of fake atheist games. um, yeah, I don't know. I'm more indifferent about atheist, I think. Um, I think it's so dependent on the storyteller, and I
Yeah,
think I just haven't been exposed enough to a lot of storytellers running it to have a real opinion about it because I like as a storyteller, I don't think I'll ever run an atheist game. I don't think I have
it's
the
tough. Yeah.
like I don't think I want to work that hard to to um and I don't think I'm a storyteller that's like my main goal is to almost create like an escape room for you to figure out which I think I would want to do if I was running Atheist. Like I'd want to make it like some really interesting puzzle or something. And to me, I'm like, I'll just run Trouble Brewing. Trouble Brewing is a great puzzle that I don't have to figure out. It just sort of makes itself. So yeah, I don't
Mhm.
think I have a strong feeling about Atheist. I was just in an like my first Atheist game that I was in. I was very conflicted about how to play in it because I was the atheist and the storyteller who I didn't really know this group, but the storyteller specifically asked me not to reveal that I was the atheist until like I think he asked me to never reveal I was the or until final three. He said
Hmm.
like don't reveal you're the atheist until final three. And because it was a new group, I sort of went along with it. And then we got to final four and we woke up on four like 3 days in a row because he didn't kill anybody.
Interesting.
And so, and I was like, I basically chatted him and I said, "Hey, I'm gonna out that I'm the atheist at this point. I I don't want to. It seems like you're not gonna push us to final three." And so basically, he was going for a specific outcome, which is he wanted the saint to get executed, so
Mhm.
that so that the saint could have the whatever. Like, there's no poisoning on the script. How could this happen? It has to be because it's an atheist game. So he was going for a specific result, and but that was the thing where I was like, I am just like you're Alfred Hitchcock, and I'm an actor, and you're just like I'm just a cattle to you in terms of like this narrative that you want to create. But it was still fun. I mean, I in that game bluffed that I was the what did I bluff that I was? Um oh, amnesiac. And I bluffed that I was each day getting the names of cities. And on the last day, or next to last day, I was like, here's my amnesiac info. And I typed it all into the chat. And it was all um, like the first letter of every city spelled out atheist. Um, and so, but I had done it like 2 days before. So on the last day when I said I was the atheist, I got them to believe me. And that was in a game where on days one and two, there were people specifically saying, if you're an atheist and you're not outing today, I will not believe you on final three. So,
Yeah, it's definitely something that's very storyteller dependent. A lot of people won't even play an atheist game unless they really know the storyteller.
mm-hmm.
Um, I atheist or not atheist, I think there's something to be said about storytellers not trying to push for specific outcomes. I always look at it more as here's I kind of give you a starting point, run with it as you will. I don't necessarily mind giving an atheist a side quest, even though I don't usually do it. But I don't think I would. I don't think I would ever just flat out ask them not to out. I would always want it for be an option for them.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a uh, it's a tricky one, and it's a hard one to run as well.
I guess
So,
theoretically in an atheist game, he could have just offered me a hey, if you it's an atheist game, right? So I think he could have said like if you say that you're the atheist, bad things will happen. And you know, it could have been offered as a almost madness type um deal because I mean technically he do whatever he wants. So
right. Yeah. All right. So one last character for this section. How do you feel about Legion?
um I have been told on good authority that I um just need to be in a Legion game run by a good storyteller. Uh and then then it'll be fun. Yeah, I mean, and I trust that. Like I think that's true. I've had some
Yeah.
rough experiences in Legion games. Um and I because for me it's so I'll give you the naive reason why I've not enjoyed the couple of Legion games that I've been in, which is that I've been the I think I've only been good in Legion games. And for me it felt like, oh, everybody had more information than me and ganged up on me. So the informed minority was actually the majority.
Hmm.
And so I don't understand how I was supposed to win this game. Um, but Stephen Medway himself told me that there's some joyful moments in a Legion game, such as like figuring out that it's a Legion game, and I actually and Ben has told me this kind of stuff too. That like I think there's a similar. It probably requires a more fine tuned orchestration of the balance of the game. And so I probably just haven't experienced that. But also probably just didn't understand Legion well enough to even get that was happening. So because I
Yeah.
think one thing I really doubt that when I played my first couple Legion games that I had a sense of, because I'm good, my vote is super important. I think I might have just been voting the way that I vote in any game, you know,
Right.
as opposed to maybe like I've never experienced in a Legion game the thing where somebody gets enough votes and nothing happens. Like that does sound really cool. So, but probably maybe a higher degree of difficulty for a storyteller. I would say I've never run one.
Definitely. Yeah. I would say so. I'm curious if you can think of one of your games, how many people are Legion and how many people are good? I
I
don't know
think
if you
it
could
was
remember.
just. I think it was just a reverse of
Okay.
the numbers. Yeah.
I only ask that because a lot of storyteller like reverse is what's strongly recommended to do. But some people think, oh well, I need to put in extra good because it's unfair if it's just reversed. And it actually
Uh
kind
huh.
of has almost like a reverse effect where the more goods you have, the easier it is to be voting out good players, and the demon still killing more legion than good at night, which is doesn't make as much sense when there's extra goods. Like you need to kill some good players. I only wonder about that because that's in my opinion, one of the mistakes storytellers make.
I mean, it would be interesting to run a Legion game with 15 players and only two goods. just like,
Yeah. Well,
just do.
thankfully, I don't see usually people flip it in that direction if they're running less goods. That would be that feels like a cruel game, but
I might do that depending on who the two like depending on the group. I
yeah,
actually do
yeah,
think like with my noob stream that I maybe I'll do that next week. Like I actually think I've learned over the last 6 months that I think that the fostering of a good group is actually probably more important than a lot of the storytelling decisions that you make.
yeah.
Because with noobs, I think I can throw almost any script at them, no matter how horrible and unbalanced it is. I ran the script created called Essie Hitton's The Outsiders. That is Lord of Typhon, Kazali, um, Librarian, and like 12 outsiders. Like it's kind of an impossible script. But it finally made Lord of Typhon viable. um,
That's funny.
but but I mean, I think objectively probably a bad script, but they still had a fun time playing it.
Yeah, yeah. That's the nice thing about groups is like if I saw that script, I probably would not recommend it maybe, but if it's fun for a group, then it's fun for a group. My group probably has scripts that are maybe not fun for other people, but it's fun for us. So I don't know.
Yeah.
All right, we have one more section here. We'll kind of go through it a little bit quick, but it's called this or that. I just named two characters. It's purposely vague, but you give whatever answer you want. So let's start with philosopher or pixie.
Oh. I'll go philosopher. I think I'll go philosopher. Yeah, I think Pixie Madness is an interesting thing that I think so far I haven't found that version of madness as fun as other kinds of madness.
Interesting. Yep. Pixie's one of my favorite characters. My favorite pixie play was being the pixie fortune teller, and I managed to find the actual fortune teller who didn't seem to understand why I was double claiming them, but telling me their info anyway. So I would just get their
Great.
info and then spread their info. It
And
was
then you
great.
don't have to back up and be like,
Right.
I will say, for making a script, Pixie, I'd pick Pixie. Like it's great for scripts
Yeah.
because it just like I like scripts where there's just reasons to double claim.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. Next couple characters we have Mayor or Fool.
I'll go Mayor. I really enjoy Mayor. I think I told Steven this when I interviewed him, which is that like I think I love the characters where the mechanics of the ability make you start to behave like the role. So a lot of times a good Mayor game is one where you do a bunch of door knocking and canvassing throughout the game, and you establish your voter base, and then at the end of the game they all trust you, and like it feels like you are completely just playing a social game the whole time. And for like that's why I love Cult Leader for the same reason. um because I was in a Cult Leader game where I was like, wow, that guy is actually just trying to be a charismatic cult leader. Like he's being encouraged to behave in a way that matches the role. So I'll go Mayor.
All right. Next two we have Ogre or Goon.
uh I'll go Goon. I think Goon is very interesting. It's an interesting little puzzle for people to solve. I think Ogre is really fun because it gives you a pal right away, similar to the gnome in a way. um but I think Goon is like in grim reveals. A lot of times it's like, oh, oh, that's what happened. The Goon was like the second Al Hadikian name or something. It encourages you to like examine these like little micro interactions sometimes that are quite interesting.
Yeah. All right. Next two we have Mutant or Damsel.
Uh, I think I'll go Damsel. Um, because the thing I find interesting about Mutant is that makes me pick Damsel is that like I'm not sure how I feel about the thing where the mutant just outs themselves and gets executed, because I feel like, oh, it's just like a virgin. Like it's so powerful sometimes that I'm like it doesn't seem like it's hurting the good team in a
That's
way.
that's why I'll very rarely ever execute a mutant who's just outing this mutant.
Right.
Yeah.
Um so yeah, I don't know. But I think Damsel's just fun because
Mm-hmm.
it provides a fun side quest puzzle for the minions. Um It also gives the demon a little bit of cover if the demon wants to claim minion and um try to make the damsel call to like take heat off of themselves as the demon. If in like final 3 they'd be like, well, I'm just a minion, like it's whatever. And also can sometimes like, not that the damsel would immediately be like, oh, phew, I'm the damsel, like looks like they missed, but damsel like has you examining people's social behavior in
Mm-hmm.
a very fine-tuned way where it's like I think Damsel does make the evil team really watch voting in a way that maybe you don't watch. I don't know. I think on evil team, how much do you really pay attention to voting? you know, um, there's not normally in a game. There's not much hidden info. There probably is, but just my impression of like Trouble Brewing is like doesn't really matter who votes for what, like unless you're like, oh, that guy's voting for every execution, they're the Undertaker. Um but whereas the number of times I've been in damsel games where somebody just very casually like puts on the last vote on themselves because they're like, I'm the chef or I'm the clockmaker, I'm sorry, it's no big deal, I can die day one, and then immediately the minion makes a pick and the game's over. That's happened to me like 3 times. It's very fun.
There's a pretty early damsel game on the TPI channel where Ben Burns was a damsel, and the YouTube video is like 20 minutes or something like that because on day one or day two, Ben tried way too hard to get himself killed, and a minion just goes, oh, I guess use the damsel, and game over. It's a fun one to watch. All right, next two characters here we have Assassin or Mezephiles.
Oh, assassin or Mezephiles? I'll go Mezephiles. I think that there's a lot of I mean, good players love turning evil, you know, like uh yeah, I think I'll go Mephiles. I think the only thing to watch out for is when there's so many alignment changes that like it becomes too hard for good.
Right.
So sometimes I mean I've been on scripts that like didn't have Spirit of Ivory. I don't know how I feel about Spirit of Ivory either, because sometimes I'm just like, well, like I've been in games where an alignment change, like I created an alignment change that couldn't happen because of Spirit of Ivory, and then it's just kind of like, well, why is this on the script then? you know,
Yeah.
like um,
Spirit of Ivory works best on scripts where, let's say, you have a Mezephiles and Al Hadikia, and prevents an Al Hadikia from just resurrecting their Mezephiles and getting a fresh ability and then making somebody else evil. Um,
yeah. See,
uh,
to me, I'm like, I
yeah.
want that to happen. I think that's hilarious.
Fair enough. Yeah.
yeah.
All right. Next two characters here we have Goblin or Marionette.
But I think Marionette. Marionette is I think because Marionette lends itself to like a whole lot of different kinds of games and can be played a variety of ways depending on the demon and depending on the demon's neighbors, because everybody seems to have different opinions about whether they want to be told. Whereas I
Mm-hmm.
think, I mean, Goblin, you can play a couple different ways, but a lot of Goblin plays end up sort of being very samey, I think, at least as far as I've encountered. Like I feel that way about Psychopath a little bit as well. Like I love the hidden Goblin Virgin Psychopath. I love, but I think they're rare. I've encountered them less in real games.
Yeah. All right. Next two characters we have Fangu or Imp.
Mm, I think Fangu is. I'll go Imp because I feel Imp is sort of the. I think Imp is the core of the whole game. I think that the Imp's ability and then just adding like killing somebody every night and adding just a little thing of like, hey, here's also an option is enough of a little escape hatch. Um like Fangu's probably cooler in a lot of ways. Um but I think sometimes Fangu um like in a way I kind of hate that Fangu can only go once, and I think it started where it didn't go once.
Yeah.
Um I kind of hate that because I kind of like it's like, oh, it would be kind of interesting if it could just jump as many times at once, because sometimes the Fangu just jumps like sometimes the Fangu ends up being like not powerful at all because there's an outsider that's been outed and they can't jump to that outsider because it's too obvious, and then you're just a demon that kills every night. And so I think the variance of like how fun the Fangu can be makes me just go, I like Imp. I like it's a straightforward, simple thing, and it's got a little bit of a safety net just in case.
Yeah. All right. And two final characters we have Lil Monster or Kazali.
Um, hmm. I think Little Monster. I think, yeah, I think it's a fun, like, yeah, I think Little Monster because it's a fun, different way to play the game. For the minions to like really think strategically differently than they normally would, makes the minions be more of this really you sort of have to be like a cohesive team and think about who is most exposed at any given time, and that you have to sort of make some predictions about how you think the next day is going to go. Whereas
Mm-hmm.
Kazali is almost like a junior storyteller role where without the ability to star pass. So uh like the coolest thing about Kazali is that I love people getting woken up and told they're a different role, and they already have a bluff, so that's cool.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Little Monster is just a interesting. I can think of more reasons why if we're playing a bunch of base 3 games, uh, hey, let's play one game that has a Little Monster on it versus we're playing a bunch of base 3 games and then we play a Kazali script. It's just kind of like, okay, it was still a demon that just killed every night. and there were still 2 minions. Like, the main difference was that the demon got to pick who their buddies were. So I guess it does add a social element of like, who would Sam pick on night one,
Mm-hmm.
But I think the little monster question is more interesting.
All right. All right. Well, one last question before we go. Looking at the script here of Sex and Violets, which of these characters would you like to be in real life?
Oh, on Sex and Violence?
Yeah.
Let's see. Who would I like to be in real life? I was gonna say I could be. I mean, I think I kind of am a philosopher in real life. Um, yeah. You know what? I'll go with philosopher because I still think in my life that I can kind of choose whoever I want to be from day to day. I can choose what role I want to be, and also, like, if I want to be a comedian, I can choose to be a comedian, and comedy is a zero sum game. So if I choose to be a comedian, it makes somebody else drunk and unable to pursue their career.
Fantastic. All right. Before we go, is there anything you'd like to plug?
Yeah, I'd like to plug my special on Dropout. It's called Chris Grace as Scarlett Johansson. And depending on when this comes out, I'll be doing my new show, Chris Grace Sardines, at the Elysian Theater in Los Angeles, Sunday, November 24th. And then I'll be in Wisconsin at the Overture Theater doing Baby Wants Candy and Scarlett January 11th and 12th. And then later next year, I'll be in Portland Center Stage in May and June, and I'll be at the Kennedy Center in July.
All right. Fantastic. Well, Chris, thank you for joining.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. And thank you all for watching. We'll be back next week with another episode of Hard Claim.